The Wealthy Life is brought to you by investment dealer Raymond James. Life well planned. See what a Raymond James advisor can do for you.
Will giving your money away really make you happy? Several studies say that's the case, and I tend to agree. With me today is Mike Todd, the Executive Director of the Raymond James Canada Foundation, and he knows firsthand the importance of giving. Welcome, Mike. It's so great to have you here today. Cold and all, I understand that you came down with a little bug yesterday.
That's right. I love my job so much, I talk too much and I lose my voice.
But it kind of sounds cool.
I think so.
So how did you get into this role?
I spent about 12 years working in the investment business, mostly with mutual funds. And then for a complete change, I worked for 8 years with a very small charity working in Vancouver's downtown east side with marginalized women. I lived in China for 2 years just to be different, and then came back and fell into this role. I love working with advisors, working with clients, but my heart's really in philanthropy, so this job it's the best job in the world.
Well, I share your passion for philanthropy. It does feel good to give, and I'm sure you'll agree. What do you find are the biggest reasons people give?
It's a great question. I think that people give intuitively. They know that it's the right thing to do. I think we all feel a connection. We feel if we've done well, then we need to do well for others on top of that. I think it makes us feel good, but that's the benefit. That's not the reason people give. Often, I'll speak to donors, and there's a real personal reason. There's a family member or there's a cause that's behind their giving.
So when people feel a strong connection to making a difference, that seems to be the main driver.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And I know that's the case from my perspective. A lot of people that I work with, giving for the sake of giving just doesn't quite cut it. And when people hear a story of someone that needs help, or knowing that their dollar can really take that to the next level or make a difference in someone else's lives, that's when they get powerful and motivated to give.
That's right, that's right. Sometimes when we're in the wealth management business, we think too much about the tax breaks, which are important.
Yeah.
But for the donors, it's really a very personal, emotional reason for giving.
Well, the tax breaks, they're great, but all they do is they just reduce your net cost of giving and making a difference.
Absolutely.
Now, once people realize what the full tax breaks are, hopefully that encourages them to give more than they would have otherwise given. But you're right, it's not the number one driver. So there's a number of ways people can give. Right. What are the ways that you see? Well,
there's the easiest way is just to make a donation directly to a charity, which is also often very effective. There are different trusts you can set up. There are donor-advised fund structures you can set up. It really depends on how big a giver you are, how much it impacts your income, the number of charities involved.
And I see a lot of people getting involved with life insurance policies, appointing charities as beneficiaries. Of course, you can give with time in addition to money. It doesn't always have to be money related, but charities do need money. And the government tax rates are lower. There's been cutbacks on a lot of the social programs. I'm okay with that as long as each of us as individuals step up and fill the gap.
No, I completely agree. And in fact, it's interesting. In Canada, we have a government that is very, very encouraging of Canadians to give. We've had, I think, across the world, we probably have the best tax legislation for encouraging donations. And I think that's part of what you described. There's been cutbacks, but the government makes it possible for us to pick up that slack.
Well, I had the honor of meeting Donald K. Johnson a couple of weeks ago. He was in town doing a presentation, and he was the man who, for I think it was about 10 or 12 years, had been lobbying to the government to allow donors to give stocks in kind to the charities, because there's an extra tax perk. If you do that and your stock's at a capital gain, you don't pay tax there. Plus, you get the charitable benefit.
Oh, exactly. It's the classic double dip, and I think it's a great way to go. If you've got cash or you've got securities, more often than not, it makes more sense to give the securities.
And it's likely a lot more efficient from an economic perspective to allow individuals to give the money as opposed to the government to run the social programs. The need is still there either way. It's just who pays for it and what's the most efficient way to run the money through.
Exactly. I think you're exactly right. It's more efficient, and it allows the money to flow to those organizations that are doing really effective work in certain areas.
So tell me a little bit more about this donor advised fund.
It's exactly as the name suggests. I mean, very often, if you're a donor, you write a check to a charity, and that's generally where your participation ends. You get your tax receipt, and that's the end of it. But with the donor advised fund, what happens is you write a check to a sponsoring charity, and an account is set up for you. You receive a tax receipt, but as the name suggests, you continue to advise that charity on where you would like to see them eventually send the money out. So in our case, we will do this, and then we take advice from donors, and then we make grants to different charities over time and try to honor their wishes.
So a donor advised fund is really like setting up your own mini foundation in a way. You're piggybacking off of an existing charitable foundation. You put the money in, and you get to provide advice on where you want those distributions made.
That's right. We often
Down
say
the
it's
road.
like having your own foundation, but without the costs and the hassles. So it allows the donor to do the fun part, which is to sit around the table with their family, to involve the kids, to talk about the charities that they care about and where they want to give the money. And then the sponsoring charity takes care of the rest of the work.
And there is a lot of work behind the scenes. It's never easy setting up your own full foundation. There's legal documents, there's regulatory requirements, there's tax filing requirements. I think there's a bunch of meetings that you have to hold.
That's right,
You maybe
yeah.
need a board. So there's a lot involved. So I think that scares a lot of people away. Yet a lot of people like the idea of creating their own legacy
Right.
and leaving a legacy.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, and so do people do that while they're still alive? Do they do it after they're gone, or a combination thereof?
It can be a combination, and I love that word legacy. It's about creating a legacy now, so I can see it, I can feel it, and then when I'm gone, it continues on. So very often people will set up a donor advised fund now and then fund it additionally with their will, so that it carries on after them.
Yeah, well, that makes great sense. Now, what are some of the reasons people don't give? What would you say?
That's a great question. I think some people don't give because A, they're worried that they're going to outlive their money,
Yep.
and that's where we need a good financial advisor involved.
Everyone wants to make sure that they have their own needs met first.
Yeah, and I think that's perfectly legitimate and makes a lot of sense, and it frees us up to feel comfortable giving. But then I also think that they worry about, is my money going to be well spent? Is this the right organization to give to?
Oh, so talk about giving to an organization where maybe the administrative costs are too high.
That could be the case, yeah.
Yeah.
It's all about impact and what's going to happen with my money once I give it.
And I think for a lot of people, it's just not top of mind. I think the average person is so busy running their own life that the only time that a lot of people give is when they're asked.
That's right.
And so people should ask, but then they get bombarded by asks. So I would challenge people out there to give some thought. If you could make a difference in this world, what would it be? And figure out a way to do that.
Yeah, absolutely right. We always say that people want to make a difference. So you can make a difference and we can help.
Well, Mike, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show today.
Absolutely.
Poor voice and all. So thanks. Still to come, find out how you can better enjoy your golden years without breaking the bank when we return.